All right, I see the green light is on and it's 6:30, so the mission statement for the Lake Mills Area School District is preparing all of today's students for tomorrow's opportunities. On to verification of the meeting notice.
It was posted on the LMASD website and at the Lake Mills Post Office and submitted to the Lake Mills Leader.
Okay. We will call this meeting to order, and for all those who are able, please rise and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. All right, I will request the roll call for attendance and call the meeting to order.
Brianna Beslick. Here. Ken Eimers.
Here.
Andrea Graham.
Here.
Kirk Lund.
Here.
Amy Litcher.
Here. Moving on, are there any revisions to the agenda? All right, hearing none, may I have a motion?
I'll move the board approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Brianna Beslick.
Yes.
Eimers.
Aye.
Andrea Graham.
Aye.
Kirk Lund.
Aye.
Amy Litcher.
Aye. All right. Moving on to administrative reports, Dr. Olson.
All right, just one exciting note. Jeff Lear, who's our technology educator at the high school, was recently recognized with an award of excellence for exemplary achievement in technology education. He was nominated for that by some of his peers, so we're very excited about him. He's been doing a wonderful job for us with his first year being in the district. Also an update on our LCAT Collaborative Advisory Team. The school board and I are still looking for volunteers to be part of that committee, so if anybody is watching this at home, definitely we would like to have your name added to that list. Please contact Megan Larrabee at the district office if you are interested in being part of that. This committee is the committee that will be charged with developing a recommendation to the school board regarding our facilities and financial needs in the district. And lastly, we have with us today Al Yeager, who is the USI Insurance Services Senior Vice President and Senior Benefits Consultant. And he is here to present to the school board when we received our renewal on our current insurance plan of a 15.9% increase. We knew that that was not feasible, especially facing our current deficit. So that really is forcing us to look at some plan design changes in order to bring that renewal number down. So he is here today to share with us some options and some recommendations moving forward. So welcome, Al, to the podium.
Good evening. So the summary for presentation would be kind of where we were, where we are, and where we can take this moving forward. Next slide speaks to that. And we'll also discuss, in addition to looking at things a little different, some consideration for future consideration of a clinic model that's starting to grow. So next slide. So where we were, the slide outlines a spreadsheet that the committee members in the district has become familiar with. And in the slide, it speaks to current plan design does have lower consumerism, which means when you look at office visits, when you look at prescription, there's a copay, which for the most part, staff members don't understand what the basis of the cost is. And as a result, there tends to be lower awareness of what the cost is and what the options are. The other piece that we're recognizing is we have about 38% of utilization for an annual physical or annual visit with a primary care physician. That's pretty low. And it's somewhat of a byproduct of the pandemic and the fact that access to primary care is becoming more challenged, but the other part is people have suppressed doing their annual visit as well. And as far as out-of-pocket cost, when we look at our current plan, when you add up copays, when you add up deductibles, and you add up overall exposure, we do have a high out-of-pocket exposure. So when there's a lot of frequency, an individual can have the maximum out-of-pocket can be $10,000 on a medical, and when you add another $4,000 in prescription, there's a $14,000 exposure. So some of the items on the current design and a $2.4 million a year health insurance spend, and the other piece is we're continuing to see and feel that claim levels are exceeding what we're paying in premium, which translates to the next slide, where we received the 15.9% increase. The reason for that, when your claims are exceeding your premium, the insurance company is saying, we need to make up ground. And at 16% for the upcoming year, right, what Dean is collecting in premium, we've been paying out, or we've been experiencing $1.42 in claims for every dollar they are collecting in premium. So if we were to remain a status quo, it would be a significant jump in our budgetary impact. And the idea there is the insurance would start taking in basically a significant budget hit. The piece that speaks to the HRA balance. So we did introduce, and this is kind of a nice stepping piece that we had in the current plan design, you have a higher deductible with a health reimbursement arrangement underneath it. That did build some consumerism for those more like inpatient, outpatient visits, but not necessarily all the office visits in HSA. So we have made a step in that direction, but not necessarily a full step. And the HRA balances are use it or keep it. Again, a nice start for consumerism from the standpoint that people recognize when they have those inpatient, if I can find a better value option, it's use it or keep it. So again, it's not a foreign concept, it's just not on all of the coverages. Next slide. So when we look at side-by-side columns, and we look at our current model that has the copays with the new model, and the new model would be what you would call a high deductible health plan, which translates to health savings account qualified. And we do have the next slide that you can actually see the details of it, but the intention behind this is to demonstrate with a high deductible plan, everything goes to the deductible. The deductible is also your out-of-pocket maximum. So instead of having a $10,000 medical, $14,000 overall max out-of-pocket, your max out-of-pocket is $6,000 as a family minus what you put into the HSA. Pretty simple to understand, much lower overall exposure, and we get a better rate out of it as well. So with this concept with an HSA of the $3,000, $6,000, staff members can ultimately choose if they want their current HRA model, meaning health reimbursement arrangement underneath that $3,000, $6,000, or if they want a health savings arrangement, health savings account underneath. Either vehicle is fine, it's compliant for either. The other piece of this is now we could ultimately get near a zero increase in overall budget by moving down this path. The other piece that would come into play, since we're doing a little bit something different with each in the plan design, over half the staff would receive a premium decrease coming out of their paycheck, another positive. And then if we went from $5,700 a year to $4,700 a year on the cash in lieu component, that would add an additional $70,000 savings. And once again, savings is a relative term. We'd still be cost neutral from what we spend present year. So it's a little bit of an adjustment in each category. Next slide. So this breaks it down in more detail. The top part, the plan design is very simple. 3,000 single, 6,000 family deductible. The offset The premium contribution, the district would pay 88%, one flat 88% rate. The contribution underneath the deductible to offset the 3.6 would be 2,000 single, 4,000 family would be made available in either type of an account. And then meanwhile, you're looking at just about $3,400, if we use a snapshot, about $3,400 increase in overall cost. So very close to budget neutral. Next slide. When we look at peer comparisons, this new design is very consistent and much more in line in terms of out-of-pocket exposure, contribution underneath the plan design in the HSA/HRA, and it's somewhat of a proven approach from what we've seen. We have a significant case study of employers that have done this now for 5+ years, and we're seeing the balances grow pretty significantly in the staff's accounts, and we're seeing a pretty reasonable medical trend, much more reasonable than 15.9. Next slide. The piece that'll be of interest in the committee meetings and overall discussion is access to primary care. One of the concepts, if it becomes more and more of a concern, is the idea of virtual clinic or a near-site clinic. It's something that some of the neighboring districts are looking at different models or have implemented a different model of a nurse practitioner access. The reason why behind it, if getting into an annual physical is taking 9 months, a year, and each time you go, you're seeing your physician for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and each time you talk about something other than a preventive exam, you're getting dinged for an additional 150, 250 because it fell outside of preventative code. Those are discouraging features that isn't going to help improve the population health. It's discouraging. So if that, in fact, is a deterrent that staff are, is a prevailing theme, we want to reverse that trend and consider a model that will cost anywhere from $25 to $30 per employee per month. Translated, that could be as much as $35,000 to $40,000 a year if we went down this path. But the idea behind it is there wouldn't be no surprises. Access would be significant. The visits would be a half an hour, not rushed. And we're starting to see serious impact on medical trend for districts that are looking at this. I don't want to say this is an absolute. I will say we're going to keep monitoring this because it may be an opportunity worth the while. Next slide. When we look at why that's significant, so 5% of staff members incur 60% of the claims, of the dollars, large claimants. Most of those conditions oftentimes could have been prevented, could have been mitigated if they had had an annual physical and been diagnosed or treated earlier. And when we look at 60 to 70% of adult members not engaging in annual primary care exams, that speaks volumes. So as an example, 50 to 60% of plan members are not or do not receive the recommended cancer screenings. That's a big deal. Some of the statistics in the lower left-hand corner, when you look at colon cancer, prostate cancer, cervical cancer, and breast cancer, the 5-year survival rates are, nearly in stage 1, by catching at stage 1, are approaching 100%, well over 90%. When you start getting to stage 4, significantly lower. So that, it's a win-win. We want happier, healthier workforce, right? Point 2, it's significantly less expensive to spend the money in the screenings than it is in the care. So those are all part of the prevention and encouraging the screenings. Next slide. The last piece we spoke to, staff would have a choice, whether it's an HSA or an HRA. It's not a choice of the plan design that's with the health plan. It's a choice of what vehicle do I want my money put into by the district? And if it's really when we look at the HSA option, we could continue to use the same vendor that does our HRA, or there's some independent banks out there that we just did a pricing comparison and vehicle comparison. For example, Associated is a common one. And in the end, we were vetting the process just to make sure if we stay with one vendor, which can make a lot of sense, staying with the vendor through satisfaction, just to make sure we're not leaving anything on the table from a pricing and a deliverable standpoint. Next slide. So that was a summary of everything that was vetted in consideration. Questions?
Yeah, does the HRA, would that still be available to new employees as well? The choice would be for anyone coming in new?
It could be done either way, but I think the expectation was it'd be a choice.
Yeah, I think, you know, a big part of this is going to be an educational piece with the staff to make sure that whether they choose an HRA or an HSA, that they understand all the implications of each and that it makes sense for them. I know we, and I had put that in a memo, that we wanted to offer, you know, the HRA as an option, just because if we converted completely over to the HSA, it would be harder for people to use up the monies that were in that HRA bank. But I think, you know, we'll be, like I said, setting up several sessions with staff so they understand, here are the benefits of an HSA moving forward, here are the benefits to you with an HRA. But I guess personally, I would think new staff would possibly want to choose an HSA option moving forward.
Sure. And with the HSA, it seems like you could use that fund for all your available benefits plus a little bit more, is that fair to say?
The way it's currently designed, it'd be very similar, but you can use it for whether it's expenses that are beyond your health plan. So you could use it for, you know, a vision exam that's not covered, or glasses, or contacts, or things like that. But for the most part, you can have it designed the same. The biggest difference in my lens is when you retire, it can serve like an IRA, where it doesn't need to be a qualified IRS expenditure. You can start taking it out like an IRA, where you're taxed at the income level you are when you retire, but you can use it then for anything, right? So it has a little bit more flexibility and a little less administrative hassle.
Thank you.
If I'm seeing correctly on, I think, Tasha, you sent us the employee benefits cost deductions, some of this. So the option one basically is about $5 more per month, or per pay period, because it was $231 for a family. I guess I'm just using it as an example for a family. It was $231.05, and it would be $235.60. Do you see where I'm looking?
So what they're looking at, Al, is we had talked about the different, the point of service versus the HMO plans with that, so.
Oh, so this is separate than what's on?
It was, so within that high deductible plan, we had discussed two, I don't know if you want to talk
Sure.
about that, Al.
For the most part, districts will introduce the HMO plan as the featured plan. And the reason for that is when you are dealing with the higher deductible approach, first of all, most everyone's using the in-network anyway. Second of all, the out-of-network is double the deductible. And as a result, it's clearly quite a bit more to use out-of-network. And what we've found is when you use the HMO, if you need an out-of-network referral, or if you end up having something that's covered out-of-network, it becomes processed as in-network. Whereas with point of service, they won't go through that process. They'll just charge it as out-of-network, and you get charged the double deductible. Point being, there's higher satisfaction and less complaints when we just educate on, let's feature the HMO. And if an individual spends significant energy saying, I absolutely need the out-of-network, you can have that as an option. But honestly, your satisfaction and approach, which most districts do, makes the most sense to focus on the HMO plan.
I guess my biggest question is, what's the increase that employees are gonna see per month? And then the HSA is funded through their pre-tax dollars, and so then they're gonna have this increase in deductible. So what are the employees gonna see percentage-wise increase in their
From their
in
specific
their
paycheck,
healthcare fees? Yeah.
majority will have a decrease, and I'll grab the spreadsheet real quick. I don't have that in front of me.
Okay, thank you.
And of course, my computer went down. So when we look at your current enrollment, individuals, depending on which plan they have, I'll just use family as an example, are either paying $231 a month, family, or they're paying $151 a month, depending on which plan. This would be a universal $201 a month. So $30 less for some and $50 more for some.
And then they're deciding how much they want to be deducted to put into the HSA, which then they would use to pay for the deductible.
If they wanted to spend more than the $2,000, $4,000 that would be contributed by the district, that would be a choice, yes.
So, and Andrew, just to clarify, so like, on the first chart, we showed how much, kind of the average sums were that people had in the HRA. I would say from what we've seen in the district, that people have used the HRA fairly wisely. So they've had, I would say, more than enough money for the most part to cover that deductible. I think, it would be in that first year, if all of a sudden you had some unexpected costs where you only had, the HSA amount that we've put into it, you might start seeing some personal expenses. But I think for the most part, the HRA has worked fairly well. So I don't think employees have had a lot of out-of-pocket costs unless they've had some real high medical claims.
Okay.
And to that point, when you combine $4,000 that's already, that the district would contribute with this model on top of the balances, and Dr. Olson mentioned the slide that touched on this, I think it was the third slide, but you have 29 individuals with a balance between 500 and 1,000, 17 with over 1,000 to 1,500. You start getting further up the ladder, you have 33 with between 2,500 and 5,000, and 23 with over 5,000 to 10,000. Point being, there's been a lot of judicious accumulation on the HRA, and you combine that with the HSA, they would be, or with the new contribution, they'd be sitting pretty good.
I mean, I think the biggest thing is that we can stay with Dean with this, because that's one of the biggest stressors of trying to find a new provider and those kinds of things. So that's, I think, really good. I know we have the benefits committee on Wednesday, and I think the biggest thing, like you mentioned too, is just explaining all this, because when you're not in the insurance industry and you're looking at all these numbers, it's very overwhelming. So just making sure that all the employees understand and, like you said, know the best choice, should they go with the HSA or HRA and all that. So thank you for being there to explain all these things and.
Thank you, and if you don't mind me expanding on your comment about not disrupting providers is a big deal right now. And when we look at staff surveys of districts throughout, the bigger issue is provider access. And by not disrupting that, the plan design changes has not, we see high satisfaction with this model. We see high dissatisfaction when you disrupt the providers. So, thank you.
Was the cash in lieu, is that part of this discussion? Is that, I see that's going to decrease, or we're going to decrease it by 1,000?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. And then HSA and HRA, just to confirm, HRA is, this is a question. HRA is when you leave, it stays with the district, and HSA stays with you?
In both of these, they're designed for the staff member to have access to them in general. But HSA will always be with the staff member. HRA, there are some, how should I describe it?
Working on some plan design changes with that as well. But you're right, HSA, like Al mentioned before, going into retirement, it's actually, I think, a very lucrative retirement option that staff can use when they're planning for paying for health insurance into the retirement years or any other needs that they would have.
Okay. All right.
I was going to add, along with the educational piece that Andrea was talking about, I think one of the other important things that might be helpful to really understand, because I had asked too about the in-network versus out-of-network with this proposed recommendation, and so I think that might be another piece to kind of help them understand the difference between that and the flexibility. I feel a little bit more flexibility with it might entice them as well, so.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
You mentioned that the total out-of-pocket would be actually the deductible amount. Does that include co-pays as well? I mean, everything gets paid?
Yeah, there would no longer be co-pays. So, you know, in the world where, for example, you pay $10 on a co-pay current present day on a prescription, the total cost of the prescription might vary from $15 to $50, but they're paying 10. New world, they would pay either 15 or 50, but they could shop around, but there's no longer a copay. They're paying the actual cost of that until they hit the $3,000 single or $6,000 family deductible. So they're using that $4,000 that's put into their account, that's use it or keep it, to pay for those scripts. So to answer your question, the maximum out of pocket would be the $6,000, but everything's going toward it. There are no copays.
Okay.
And I think the key you mentioned earlier, Al, was the consumerism. So, I mean, there are different ways to shop for prescriptions and different ways to use your insurance. And I think that just forces all of us to be better consumers of our insurance and just watch that more closely than maybe in the past.
Prescriptions are the biggest area of savings opportunity for staff members when they shop around. And we'll educate on things like Good RX and other options that are of consideration, where if they find something that's available, it still has the same trust of an FDA approval and all that other process, but they can save 30, 40, 60% in some instances. And so, you know, the more we can educate, the better the consumerism can be.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? All right. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Just a quick note, Andrew, so our committee meeting is actually tomorrow, so we'll be meeting with that group tomorrow after school.
Okay.
Thank you, Al.
And moving on to Ms. Naylor's administrative report.
Hi. So I would like to introduce Mr. Brad Mosier. He's he's our Director of Transportation, and he's going to give us an update on transportation.
Hello, my name is Brad. So I think this came about from me submitting quotes for upgrades and new things within the transportation department. So and there isn't funds available to do everything I want to do. So we're kind of just giving a quick report of what I see and what's happening and the status of where we're at right now. So these are our buses right here currently. Bus 33 at the top is 22 years old. The newest bus, bus 48, is 2 years old. It's 2 years old because I'm going off of it being, it ran this year, and when we bought it, it was a year old. It sat on the lot. We bought a year-old bus. I think we got a little bit of discount for that. So I think the most important part of this slide is our average age of our buses is over 10 years old. To me, it's just a little bit old. And if we look at our timeline, our current replacement timeline, going off of one bus a year. So if we buy a bus this year, and I think we'll receive it in July, we will be giving up a bus that's 22 years old. The following year, the bus we give up will be 19 years old. And following on down the line, 18, 18, 17, 17, 17, 18. Again, this is our oldest bus that we'll be giving up. I think that this chart needs to come down a little bit to the 15, 16-year-old. I think running 20 and 19 and 18-year-old buses is just, I don't think it's a good idea. They're just too old. I think we should try and have a little bit more of aggressive purchasing schedule on our buses. I don't know if we try and slip 2 in there one year. You look at 16 buses here, 14 of them are long buses and 2 of them short buses. We do the short buses during 4K at lunchtime. Also in the morning, we have a wheelchair student that rides the short bus. And currently we do not have a driver for spec ed. So we are still 1 driver short. So possibly we could buy, and again, this is all future planning. I don't have the answers, but maybe a regular bus and put a short bus in there somewhere to get us caught up a little bit. Next slide. Here's the vans and I'm excluding the special ed vans, the food vans, the ones that are all in good shape and that are bought with spec ed and food monies. That doesn't seem to be a problem. Van 1 and van 2 at the top there, they're the ones that you see out around town all day long. They're 2018 models. Van 1 currently has probably more than 78,000 now since I put this together. Going off of the average of what it's been through miles it's put on so far this year, it'll end up putting on 17,000 miles this year. Van 2, 85,000 miles, and it'll put on 25,000 miles this year. Those van gets used a lot. They're out there all day long. Van 3 and van 4, 13 years old. Think of your car that's 13 years old. They're just getting up there. I would like to see them get replaced soon. And again, in the past, what we've done is we've purchased vans and skipped buses. I don't think we can do that anymore. I just don't think it's a good idea. So unfortunately here, I had some videos of cameras. To me, this is the most immediate need, is upgrades to our camera systems in our buses. And if you could just go to the next slide. This would be the upgrade. Currently, if we get a call to look at bus video, we really cannot see inside the seats at all. We cannot see outside the bus at all. Recent legislation has allowed buses to put cameras down the aisle. In previous past, not that long ago, you could not do that. So basically, our buses currently have 2 cameras in the front of the bus, right above the driver, and 1 points to the back of the bus and 1 points to the front of the bus. That's it. Not very good quality. Cameras have obviously come a long way. This is off of San's website. San makes the cameras that we put in the buses. So to me, a camera facing the passenger door, facing out front. I wish it was here, but I don't have it. It's going to be one of the videos that isn't working here. We have a bus with a camera at the stop arm. which is very handy because we're in town driving and cars are running the stop signs constantly. You know, I have a driver who stops on Main Street, says he averages 3 a week. And I feel terrible because there's nothing I can do about it. This would be a solution. I mean, it's going to put the burden on the police to then follow up and hopefully write a citation, but at least this is an option to stop that. I don't know how else you would do it. Also problems inside the bus, if there's a safety issue, if there's something going on, you can see inside the seats. Currently, you see tops of seats, some seats you can't even tell there's a kid in there. If we go to the next slide, unfortunately this is the one where I have a live video of someone driving through a stop sign. So I worked with Nelson's on a upgrade for our buses. This is the camera positions that we came up with. So you'd have 2 down the sides, 1 in front pointing forward, the dash cam, which I think would be very helpful, 1 at the stop arm and 1 pointing out the passenger door. This is the upgrade that I proposed and we got quotes for, but unfortunately our funds are kind of low right now, so we can't do it. But I think there is a need for it. If we could go to the next slide. So the new cameras would be high definition 1080p. Again, they can be placed down the cabin of the bus. A neat feature is if there's cameras down the length of the bus, we can select which camera we want to listen to the audio on. So if something happens in the back of the bus, I select the camera in the back of the bus for audio. I can hear what's going on also. It's very handy. Safety concerns, accident reconstruction. God forbid that there is an accident. But as you could clearly see with the photos we saw of what we could capture, it'd make it much more easier to reconstruct an accident if we needed. With 2 cameras outside the bus and 1 at the passenger door, I think would be very handy. Again, the license plate capture. Also, with the video upgrades, we would be upgrading the DVRs and looking down the road, those bottom 3 items, maybe something we could do in the future. I'm not concerned about it right now, but it'd be kind of cool. Real-time GPS fleet tracking, log on to a website. We can see live where a bus is. You can tell us right where it is. Same with video streaming. Log on to the website. You could watch the video live. The last one, wireless video download. It's not extremely important. It would just make my life easier. Currently, I have to go to the DVR, unlock it, pull the hard drive out, take it to my office, put it in a new device, watch, through software, record it. Live wireless downloads would be cool. Something to think about for the future. This is one of our doors in our bus shed. I got quotes to replace. I worked with Rod before he left on replacing garage doors, getting quotes for that. They're literally rusting and falling apart. We can go to the next slide too. But so I think what we did is we put together a quote to replace 4 doors and 5 openers. They're original doors, 30-some years old. The openers, same thing, 30-some years old. Rod was under the impression that most of them are just going to go this route very soon. And also those openers are old. And when you get someone there, you might as well just get it done and get it done right. Again, we don't have the funds to do it. If we go to the next slide, the walk-through doors. There's 3 walk-through doors in the bus shed. This is the latest one I had Harvey fix. You can see that there's plywood. Some of the plywood's pounded into the ground to hold the door in place. There's plywood going up the side. It's because it didn't close properly, so Harv fixed it. When he closed the ticket, you can see in the bottom there's significant rotting taking place in that wall. It's affecting the structural integrity of the entire east wall. Well, that's Harvey's way of saying I'm done with it, but hopefully the next building and grounds director will take a look at it and tell us what we really need to do. My point there is, could you go back, please? My point there is that there's work that needs to happen in the shed. Same with the service bay. I had Harvey in there to look at the lights because, as you can see, those long fluorescent tubes, when you first turn them on, they flicker for their first half hour. I had a Harvey come and look and see if he could replace them. George happened to be in there washing a bus at the same time when Harvey was in there, and he's looking at the water flying up in those fixtures, and he's like, well, those fixtures should be sealed, they should be waterproof. So we got a quote on that. Again, funds not available. But they don't make those bulbs anymore. So we go on to the next one. Another part of my wish list that I really haven't gotten into, but software for busing. A little bit of background. Currently, we do all of our routes kind of by hand in a spreadsheet, right? It's not the worst thing because we just continue to work off the same routes year after year. Well, maybe there's a more efficient way to do it. Maybe we could optimize them somehow. Maybe we could buy some software to help us with that. That's a maybe. Not something I'm super really over concerned about because the town is small enough that we can probably think through some pretty good routes. Maybe the routes we have are actually good enough. I don't know, but I've been in contact with all of them, talked to a few of them. TransFinder's at the top of my list right now. Nelson's uses TransFinder. I believe they use it in Stoughton too. But it would be a neat thing in the future to think about. Attendance is just one of the things that you could build upon on that. I mean, again, it'd be more money. You have to buy a piece of hardware. Kids get on the bus, they scan their card, goes back to the live reporting, live views. You could actually open it up far enough where parents, after the kids scanned, could log onto the website and actually know where their kids are on the bus. They would know that they got on, they would know that they got off. It's all neat stuff out there, but unfortunately, we're just not there yet. And I think to go to the next slide. So drivers, we've been short for years. Going through COVID, we were able to make it work because of the numbers were down. We had some very overloaded buses this year. We got 7 new drivers this year so far. We've trained and they've earned their CDLs. It's pretty cool. One more testing on Monday. So the question here becomes is how do we compete with private organizations, right? We're a small school district. Do we give them more pay? Do we give them bonuses? It's all rumors you hear that the private companies are paying more and giving bonuses. Well, I don't know that we can do that. Something to think about. The drivers are the ones who make this all work, so hopefully we can try and take care of them. They're all local, except for 3. I'm one of them that doesn't live in town. Another one just recently moved to Johnson's Creek, and the other one that's not local, just out of our school district in Cambridge. So I guess what I'm getting at there is they're all local people. They're all people that take pride in the community. They're giving back. Most of them tell me stories daily. Someone will tell me about kids on their bus and what's going on. And you can tell they enjoy it. You can tell that they're enjoying their time. So what I'm saying is we have a really good group of people. Sometimes it's fun to go out with them. Last Friday, we had 40%. So 4 of our routes last Friday were not the normal drivers. It was kind of cool. We couldn't have did that at the beginning of the year. So it was just a kind of a neat day to know that we had 4 different people sitting in those seats that night and we were fine. Talking about bonuses, that shed is a bonus, believe it or not. I had a driver not that long ago tell me if there wasn't a shed, if he had to get up and scrape his windows every morning, he wouldn't drive for us. I don't know what the future is planned, but don't take it away. If we're going to use that space that the shed resides now, build a new one, because believe me, it's a bonus for the people, it's a bonus for me. It helps. It really does. Nobody wants to climb on ladders, scraping windows on buses in the winter. I think that's a huge advantage we have. And I just want to throw this in there because I've heard off-site, and to go truly off-site, I think this would be a great place. Gas station across the street, our mechanic is across the street. And again, I know I'm spending money that we don't have, but Something to think about. That's the only reason I put that there. Yep, that's it. That's what I got.
I would just start with, maybe the question that pops up in your mind is like, well, are we better off just contracting out for services? And the answer is no. I know in the last year or two, Tasha and I have crunched the numbers, and it is not more cost effective to contract out for busing services. And additionally, just everything that Brad just said about the value added of having your own bus drivers, and also the care and I guess the love that they put in for the students that are on their bus routes. They really take care of those kids, and they know them so well. So that I would say is just not an option. I think it's to our advantage to have our own bus fleet. And I'd agree with Brad. I part of when he came to us and said, we need new garage doors, we need this, and yeah, absolutely, he's right. And when EUA is here on Friday doing with the engineers looking through all of the deferred maintenance items, they will be also walking through the bus barn on Friday. The one thing I told he and Tasha was just I wanted to hold off a little bit, because I think as we go into this community advisory committee, we absolutely need to take some of the deferred maintenance items along with the bus barn into consideration, because like Brad said, there are some advantages to possibly looking at a different site for the bus barn, or not putting money into that older bus barn, but maybe moving it, whether it's for safety and just even for location and how packed it is in that parking lot. But I agree with you. I've seen bus fleets that have sat outside and just had an office building, and then I've seen them inside. And when you've got those 25 below zero days where we're still running school, it's always an advantage to have your buses parked inside versus being exposed to the elements. And I think, Brad does just such a great job in leading that bus staff, but they do use that bus barn also with some collegiality. I am amazed at how early our bus drivers get there just to be able to talk to one another, and they do use that space for that as well. So there are a lot of advantages to having that bus barn, but it is in some desperate need of work all around. And the bus cameras too, I think have become a safety issue. And any of the principals out there can tell you, we've all watched bus footage, and bus seats are high. You can't see students in between those bus seats when you've got a discipline issue going on. So to be able to upgrade our cameras, which also costs money, would be, I think, a wise investment. But I guess we just had Brad come because we wanted to put that all out here now before we're really doing the ask, just to say these are some needs. We don't have the budget for those along with the bus fleet, but we need to start planning accordingly moving forward in the future.
I was just curious, are there grants available for like bus cameras or anything like that? Is that something we might be able to look into? Because I think that's really, really important.
We haven't seen anything as far as the bus cameras. I know they're talking of re-upping another round of the safety grants. We also have camera needs inside the schools that we would probably prioritize first. There are grants out there for electric buses. I know the two of you have been looking into that and whether that makes sense or not here. That's fairly new, I think.
We will apply for an electric bus grant. Odds are we won't get it. You think of all the school buses in Wisconsin, and they will award, I don't know, I don't know the numbers exactly, but odds are this would be year 2. I doubt that we would make it in year 2 either. So, but we will apply for the electric school bus grant for sure.
Because I know in some of the bigger districts too, they have attendants on the buses in addition to the school bus driver for safety. And I know that's a hard position to fill now too, but I agree that the cameras are really, really important to make sure that people are safe and the truth is told when things happen, and especially with people driving through the stop signs. And that's really alarming. So
I think liability. And if one thing happens and we can prove liability, I think they're worth it. Mm-hmm. To me, that's the most important thing that I shown today was upgrading those cameras.
I Thank you for sharing. I think, one of the things that we've really come away with after the whole referendum is really sharing our story, and this is a huge piece to our story. I went on a field trip the other day, and so many of the kids were like, this is my bus driver. My bus driver's driving us. And then the other kid, well, my bus driver isn't, but did you know my bus driver? So you're right. They have a huge relationship with the kids, and I think that connection first thing in the morning, picking them up and getting their day started on the right foot, that's instrumental to their day. So thank you for all you do and all they do, and this is a huge piece of our story. So thank you for sharing it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Are there any other questions?
I just would like to add, I would really like to give a lot of credit to Brad for the amount of hiring that he did this year in this department. It was not an easy task, and he really got out there and did some recruiting, and he worked a lot of hours getting the drivers prepared for their test, and it was very impressive to see that. So I just wanted to make that known and thank him for that.
I need to pass that forward to the drivers a little bit too. They all advocate for us, so it's a group effort. It really is.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brad.
All right, Tasha, do you have on the boiler?
I do. Okay, so the next piece that I will discuss is our high school boiler. So we're recommending that to be replaced. The current boiler was installed in 2001 and unfortunately did not receive the proper cleaning or preventative maintenance that it needed throughout the years. So that has resulted in some irreparable damage to the boiler. And therefore, Harv put together 3 bids through 3 different companies that were laid out in board docs, and the recommendation is that we go with Technique Mechanical as a bid. It adds a great value to the district, and it eliminates any need to hire any additional contractors. So the cost of that total was $82,000, and that includes all the additional venting and electrical and commissioning. Some of the other bids that came in did not include those, so we kind of tallied everything up, and between the 3 bids, it is the low bid. There's some additional reasoning laid out here, and also one of the pieces that he had put together was a bonus, the projected planning bonus incentive. So it's a usage incentive that would be given to us as well, and in total about $12,000 for the thermal efficiency. So do you have any questions in regards to the boiler replacement?
I was just wondering about what fell through with the maintenance on the previous one, and how do we make sure that that doesn't happen again for this new product?
I'm not sure what fell through, to be honest, but I think that just knowing that going forward, it's something that needs to happen. I think the lifespan of a boiler is about 25 years, and so this one is close to that. So I don't think there was any, 1 or 2 things that were missed that created it, but over the time of the years that it is, created this need for some things that happened. But I think just knowing that we've put in a new one and making sure that there's a schedule that's put in place for that preventative maintenance going forward.
Tasha, do you know if, is the maintenance done by a vendor, like outside vendor typically?
I believe portions of it is, yes. Mm-hmm.
And as far as funds, I see ESSER in here.
Correct. So this was put into the budget for ESSER funds. So about 74,000 of that will be used with ESSER, will be paid for with ESSER funds, and then the remainder with what we have in our Fund 41 balance.
Can I expand on my one question I had asked earlier with the incentive?
Mm-hmm.
Does that come in a relatively quick time frame? Like, would we be able to take that money and put it back into that general fund, or don't we see that till down the line?
It's my understanding that it comes shortly after the installation of the boiler.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions? All right, we will have the vote later in the meeting. Moving on to Ms. Schleischlag. And curriculum.
Hi, good evening. So I'm just here tonight just to provide you another update of where we are with curriculum and the different projects we've been working on this year. So there's 3 primary ones, so PE and health. At this point, we've looked at aligning our standards K-12, updating units, and one of the things, especially in our last meeting in February, that they really focused on was ensuring that they have high-interest activities for kids to do in PE. You might be surprised, but some kids, especially as they get older, don't like PE very much. And so we really talked about what are the things that kids do like that keeps them active, and are things they can do outside of school, like what are those lifetime activities. So the team did a lot of thinking and a lot of alignment, also to ensure that kids aren't doing the same thing year after year after year. So those changes have been made. They'll update implement the updated curriculum next year. They are looking to propose a new course next year, which would be advanced strength and conditioning. Right now, they just have strength and conditioning. It would not increase FTE. It'd be similar to the art class that you guys have approved earlier this year, where it would run during strength and conditioning. They would just have an altered plan. And then that would run pending board approval, of course. For math, K-5 math specifically, we are currently piloting 2 new math resources, and our team decided it was really important to pilot 2 different ones, and that's because of how unhappy they are with our current one. So currently in grades K through 5, we have at least 1 teacher piloting Bridges in Mathematics. And in grades 1, 2, and 5, we have at least 1 teacher piloting Great Minds Eureka Math Squared. They both meet all of the necessary criteria on ed reports. They both have good reviews. They're just structured a little differently and have some different components. I can tell you, based on my conversations with a couple of teachers, they are really enjoying their time with the pilot units and the materials. It's more, especially Bridges, very hands-on in mathematics, and has a lot more collaboration for kids than what our current curriculum resource has. The plan would be to come back to you in May with a recommendation for a new K-5 math resource, because again, that will be a purchase, because it is 6 grade spans, possibly 7, depending on the one we choose. So that'll come in May. And then over the summer, so July 1st, we'll purchase materials unless any of the companies will allow us to order in June but pay in July 1st. And then they'll have summer professional learning. And then during the fall, every teacher will have up to 2 coaching sessions with our CISA 2 rep, Stephen Mialovich, and he has worked with our district for the past 2 years. Teachers respect him. He has a great way about him of making teachers like really reflect and want to grow. And so he will be providing some of that ongoing implementation, as well as time on our professional learning days where staff will have time to continue to plan forward. For ELA, so this is a K-12, we kind of have 2 different strands happening. So for 6-12, we're starting that process to look at standard alignment and high quality units. We will be taking a small team to CISA 6 supporting secondary struggling readers. They call it SSR, and I understand why after trying to say it a few times. And that will be 2 general education teachers, one from the middle school, one from the high school, and then a special education teacher from the middle school and the high school, as well as our reading specialist, our literacy coach, and an administrator. So our plan is to really engage in that work with a small team, and then the following year, roll out that learning to all staff. Because as a former secondary teacher, I can tell you I was never told how to help kids who are struggling in reading when they get to middle or high school. So we are going to learn as a small group and then roll that out to everyone. And at that point, we'll start rewriting our units if needed. In terms of K2 specifically, we are going to enroll in the Early Literacy Academy through CESA 6. It is, they do the background learning with a small group similar to SSR, but they also come in and they do like a mini audit about what is missing or where are your gaps. And so while, between Wendy and I and with Tanya's perspective, we've identified some of our gaps, this is just that it'll be that outside perspective as well. And also, are we missing something? So this will be the first year where math is being implemented. So just a small group doing the learning so that the following year we can roll all that learning out to the full staff. In the meantime, though, because we know we have things to improve, we will have Carrie Scarlatta coming in. She's a consultant, and she'll be coming in to provide some coaching and some sessions around like small group instruction, potentially some quick formative assessments that teachers could be using in terms of literacy, and that's to help fill like a piece we don't have until we get through the learning process. Ideally, we would be investigating new resources in 24, in 2024, with a potential adoption of new resources in the spring or fall of 2025. Yeah. So it's kind of the timeline of where we are. We're doing a lot of, like I said, small group learning and then rolling that out into whole staff versus trying to get to everyone. The idea that if you have a small group who buys in, we can maybe start pulling others along with us.
Questions?
I'm just thinking about when you hear that plan, like over 3 or 4 years and all this learning, so I just think like staff retention, we want to keep our teachers and so on when we're thinking about the healthcare and the what we are going to provide for salaries and things like that, because if we do this learning then people leave and then we have people, that's wasted knowledge and funds and resources and all that. So that's kind of on my mind too when I think about this long range planning, which sounds amazing. So thank you for all the work. I'm excited.
Just a note for the PE, I've heard from many parents, if possible, keep the reffing class at the high school. That has been invaluable for many people I have heard from.
Yes,
So.
that is one. We're not looking at getting rid of anything, just updating units to be more enjoyable for kids.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, board reports. Ken, correspondence.
Yes, we have 2 correspondents today. One from the Schenke family. In recognition of our mom, please find enclosed a donation to the Mill Food Pantry. She enjoyed being a mom while cooking and baking for her family. Her mantra was always, no child should go hungry, especially children. Thank you for the service being provided to assist those in need. Our mom was also proud that 3 generations of her family obtained their education or are currently enrolled through the Lake Mills school system. Sincerely, Tina Schenke, Glenn and Lisa Schenke, Brenda Lemaster, Janan Hirsch, Jeff and Patty Schenke, Tim and Peggy Schenke, Doug and Sally Schenke, her grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And the second correspondence was from the Reglitz family, Bonnie Reglitz. We deeply appreciate and gratefully acknowledge your kind expression of sympathy. It will always be remembered. From Rachel, Melissa, and Patrick Reglitz.
All right. Moving on to our high school student report. And Liliana.
Hi, all right, so, first things first, the spring play is coming up. It's going to be April 14th. I did forget the name of it, but I know that it is an amazing performance and it's gonna be amazing this year. Ghost Chasers, yeah, I think that is what it is. So I know people are having a lot of fun with it and it should be a really amazing performance. So for spring sports, we had track start 2 weeks ago, softball started last week, and then girls soccer and baseball started today. I actually just came from girls soccer, so that's a fun time. The first girls game is next Tuesday, and we'd obviously love to have all of you come and support us. We are really focusing on having a great season in dedication to Coach Ortle this year. He was beloved by all of us, and we'll miss him dearly. We talked about him a lot today, so good to know that he is still always in our hearts and watching over us. So that's very important for us. And yeah, I know there was a track meet on Friday, and I'm pretty sure we all did amazing. And that is mostly what I have to say for right now.
I was wondering, Liliana, I might put you in the spot this time since you're still on the agenda item, but I know we've got the Start College Now requests in the consent agenda. And at our October board meeting, we approved your request. So I know you're in the middle of, what, 3 classes, 2 EMT?
So it would have been 2 classes. Oh, well, technically 3 because EMT is 2 courses. But I was not aware of the coursework that EMT took and how it takes me an average of 20 to 30 hours a week. So I did not go through a CNA, might do that sometime in the future, but right now I am currently only in the EMT course. I am in EMT 2 right now. We finished EMT 1 about 2 weeks ago, I want to say. It is a really amazing program, and I am so grateful for you guys to have approved me to go into that. I am learning so much, and it is my favorite part of the week right now is going to that class. It is a drive because I have to wake up at 6 in the morning, which is way too early for me. But it's so worth it, and the instructors are great, the college is great. One thing I will note is that in the very beginning, I was not given a lot of information, and like 2 days before the first class, my instructor had to get my personal phone number and text me because he didn't have any other way of contacting me because no one told me that I had an email for this school, and that is the only way that our instructors are able to contact us. So EMT is a course where you're in uniform, you bring your textbooks, the first day you learn CPR, so you had to get a bunch of paperwork in. So about 2 days, and my mom can attest to this, I was scrambling. I was like freaking out trying to get all this stuff in, but it did work, and my instructor was amazing, worked with me. The guy that helped me sign up for my classes, I've actually only ever seen him once. I do not actually remember his name. He was really nice when I did talk to him, but in the future, if he is the one working with us, I would like to see him tell us about the email, show us how to get there, all that other sort of stuff. My friend Jeremiah has been going there for his math class all year, and he seems to have adjusted just fine. I think that's working out great for him. I don't know if he had any struggles in the beginning, but he's also just in a really advanced math class, so it's a different type of subject than what I'm doing. So it could have been an easier process for him. I honestly don't know, but I know I'm not the first student to have taken this EMT class. I don't know how Justice Griffey did, and if someone else wants to do it in the future, I would say it'd be a good idea for our correspondent to have more, or for us to have more access to our correspondent, so that it's not struggling, the student isn't struggling 2 days before the class starts to try to find these work pants, which I had to do overnight shipping on Amazon because it's the only place I could find them. So yeah, but it is an amazing course. I actually have one of my exams this Wednesday, so I gotta scramble from soccer over to Madison to take my exam. But it is amazing. I'm learning so much. I actually did my first injection with a needle last Friday, 2 Fridays ago. They had spring break last week. A little scary, but I did great. My partner was perfectly fine. So that is all good. I chose to opt out of being injected because I am deathly afraid of needles. But you know what? This class is helping me. We're learning a lot, and the Madison College buildings are beautiful, and I'm so glad that our school district allows us to have access to these classes, to this resource, because it is truly amazing, and I'm very, very lucky to be taking advantage of the opportunities that you guys have given me. So I just want to say thank you guys again for approving that and letting me have this really great experience. Yeah, that's it.
All right. Thank you. Any person signed up for comments? All right. We will move on to the consent agenda. All right. This month's consent agenda includes the approval of the following: February 13th regular meeting minutes, February 21st Finance Committee proceedings, February 22nd Board Work Session proceedings, February's Treasurer's Report and vouchers and invoices, Personnel Report, State College Now credits, and WIA Hockey Co-op. Is there a motion?
I'll move the board approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, are there any questions on any specific items?
I'd just be curious, a little bit of background information about the cooperative hockey team.
So we currently have one student participating in that, and that came about a year or two ago, that we did have a student interested in playing hockey as part of, a WIA sanctioned team. And so I think the co-ops are, I'd say, probably a little bit more common in a sport like hockey, where each school district doesn't necessarily have their own team, nor, do we have any ice rinks close to us. I think between Stoughton and Sun Prairie and then DeForest are probably more of the common ones, the closest ones. So this allows our high school students to be able to play a sport that we don't offer at our own school on a team and compete with everybody else. So it's really just about expanding opportunities, much like you saw probably on the Facebook post where we're just, one of our parents was just kind of generating some interest about swimming. Again, we don't have a swim team here at school, but if we have high school students that want to participate in that as a WIA sport, we would co-op, potentially with another school district or school districts to be able to offer that. Hockey, when you see the number of schools there, I'd say that's pretty typical in boys and also in girls hockey, because if you're not offering the sport, typically you're kind of letting those 1 or 2 students from a high school participate on that team, and that's why you'll see that many. I know we had another question about, is that going to be a big team? And I would say no, they're actually trying to have enough students to have a team, which is why they allow us to enter that as a co-op. So right now it's for 1 student.
With so many schools participating in this cooperative team, what do you call the team?
I don't know. Kale, do you know of what the team is called? Sometimes it's just the school district's name. I know I've seen that in girls hockey where they come up with a combined name. If there's only 2 schools or 3 schools, they'll do that. So with the DeForest hosting it, I don't know if they're just actually playing for the DeForest School District? I think they're just called DeForest. Okay.
Well, I know, I was surprised to see that La Folla and East were
Yeah.
getting rid of their team because they were the Lakers together and they played at Hartmeyer, so they just must not have enough participation. And I think the student that plays this year plays out in Wanakee currently. Is that where so that student's kind of, it sounds like based on numbers, it just kind of moves around who's hosting and what schools come together. Yeah, we have no ice in Jefferson County.
And the students pick up a majority of those costs. They're responsible for their own travel, things like that, so.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question about the Start College now, following up Liliana's. For a one course, it can get fit into the day, but I saw one that had 25 or 26 credits. Will that take his or her whole day's worth of school?
I am imagining so. I don't know the detail with that. So, so as a school district, we pay for 18 credits. We
Okay.
don't pay for above the 18 credits. So I think it probably depends on the length of the class and the timing. So I don't, I know the counselors handle the bulk of that, but I know with talking with some of the students that participate in that, there's the potential for students not to be on campus at the high school for a semester like that, where they are taking the bulk of their classes at Madison College instead, which actually I think, you know, when you get to be a senior, it is a nice opportunity to be able to get those college credits ahead of time and hopefully graduate with an associate's degree. But yeah, I'd say it's that's a lot of credits, I think, in a semester, but.
Okay.
Yeah, so my class is a 5-credit class, and I'm taking it for only one of the semesters. Jeremiah's, I think, his is also a 5-credit class. I'm not sure. But my class is every Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. So I only have 4 classes up at the high school because I'm in a place where I have enough credits where I technically could have graduated last semester, but then I wouldn't have been able to do this class. I wouldn't have been able to play girls soccer, and so I did continue on. And I know Jeremiah, we have the day 1, day 2 schedule. He doesn't have classes on day 2s. He only has his on day 1s. And that works out really well for both of us. We are able to work around that, and it's really nice to work with everything like that.
Do you, does your coursework include an internship kind of thing too? Or, I mean, do you go out in real life with anybody?
Yeah, so we actually just signed up for our simulations. Every other Friday, we get either actors or we have sim mans, which are these insanely expensive, very, very, very advanced mannequins. Actually, next week or this week, we are in our birth unit. So we have a birth mom. And so that's coming up. So we do get a lot of hands-on experience. The first sim we ever had was a live actor who acted out a situation. Then we have sims, which are outside of class, and you have 4 of those. It's a 3-hour time out of your day, and you work with actors and mannequins. And then after you take your national exam, which is actually the same week as all the AP exams, you are given lots of resources. And they tell you, you can either, so here are some opportunities we know of. Here are some ways that you could go. And actually, a lot of my friends in class are taking this course through another fire department. My close group in that class is all from Belleville. Well, actually, they attend UW-Madison, but through Belleville, they're being paid to take this class so that they can go directly work there. And I know of 3 other communities that have their fire departments and have pay for these students to come in and take the class so that they can come work there. And while they're taking the class, they do ride-alongs, they walk through the facility, and they just kind of see how that facility works. And then in class, we're taught about how each of our surrounding areas, like their rules and regulations, and how to get into those programs. And then all of our instructors are current EMTs and paramedics. So they all come from districts around us and help us. And at the end, once we pass the national exam, if they have any job opportunities at their stations, they will hand us those applications, get us interviews, all that sort of stuff. So, yeah.
Great.
Yeah, they're doing a really good job with it, I definitely think. Yeah.
All right. So it's been moved and seconded, so I will ask for a roll call vote on the consent agenda.
Brianna Beslick.
Aye.
Ken Imers.
Aye.
Andrea Graham.
Aye.
Kirk Lund.
Aye.
Amy Litcher.
Aye. All right, the boiler that was discussed, moving on to action items. The boiler that was discussed earlier today, for turnkey installation to include all new venting, electrical, and commissioning at $82,000 total. May I have a motion?
I'll move the board approve the bid from Technique Mechanical for the high school boiler replacement in the amount of $82,000.
Second.
Okay, any other discussions, questions? Hearing none, I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Ken Imers.
Aye.
Andrea Graham.
Aye.
Kirk Lund.
Aye.
Brianna Beslick.
Aye.
Amy Litcher.
Aye. All right, revision of paraeducator summer school pay. We discussed this at a finance committee, and it was discussed that they may need to have been increased, so. Is there a motion?
I move the board approve summer school wages for paraeducators employed during the school year at their regular hourly rate.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussions, questions? Hearing none, I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Andrea Graham.
Aye.
Kirk Lund.
Aye.
Brianna Beslick.
Aye.
Ken Imers.
Aye.
Amy Litcher.
Aye. Okay, Jefferson County Truancy Plan. Says that at least every 4 years, the administrator has to which contains the county seat, is required to convene a committee to review recommendations for a truancy plan. And this is that plan. So it's attached, and there were only minor technical changes since the last time. Is there a motion?
I'll move the board approve the Jefferson County Truancy Plan as presented.
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions? Hearing none, I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Kirk Lund.
Aye.
Brianna Beslick.
Aye.
Ken Imers.
Aye.
Andrea Graham.
Aye.
Amy Litcher.
Aye. All right, class action settlement with Jewel Labs, Inc. If you want to give a little bit.
We were invited to be part of this class action suit against Juul due to the vaping crisis that is in our nation. And they finally settled a portion of that with just Juul. There's another portion still going on. So it was at no cost to the district. The legal counsel took a portion of the settlement. So the gross settlement for Lake Mills School District was $27,800. So the attorneys will take about $7,000 of that, which leaves us about $20,000. It needs to be put towards vape detectors and vape education. Jessica Johnson does a lot of our vape education already. So once we start getting the money from that settlement, we'll be finishing out vape detectors at the high school and then moving into the middle school with those. Currently, the last time we installed vape detectors, it was about $1,000 per detector. That cost might be a little bit more when we go into the high schools because we're starting from scratch, but to add to the existing detectors at the high school, I'm budgeting probably, $1,000, $1,200. So that'll actually help us out quite a bit. And like I said, it took us, Kayla and I and Steve, about maybe 2 hours of paperwork to fill that out. So well worth the time.
I move the board accept the settlement offer from Juul Labs, Inc. as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, I ask for a roll call vote.
Brianna Beslick.
Aye.
Ken Imers.
Aye.
Andrea Graham.
Aye.
Kirk Lund.
Aye.
Amy Litcher.
Aye. Okay, EUA contract extension.
I Right, again, we're continuing our work and our facility studies. So as I stated before, Epstein and Architects started in the district last week, so they'll do 2 series of walkthroughs. One's for educational adequacy at all of the buildings, including, we're also looking at RLAC because we know that that'll come up in our discussion for our committee, even though we don't own that building, but we do rent quite a bit of space there. And then also all of the maintenance needs for all 3 buildings, including the bus barn, and then also taking a look at our LAC in case that also comes up for discussion. At the end, they will be putting together a very specific report for the committee to review, but they will also be on site at all of our committee meetings. So really, this contract is for continued work up until a potential referendum next April. We still do not pay for the work that Findorf is doing. They're still doing that work pro bono, which I would say is very typical in this type of plan.
Will they be visiting the Methodist Church or not
We're still waiting to see what 4K enrollment looks like for next year.
Okay.
Oh, you mean as far as the facilities?
EUA, like,
No,
is that
just,
part of our
just
facilities
because
technically?
the only reason I had them include RLAC in there is because we've had, for the last 2 years, continued meetings between their board and the city and the school district, just because of how we use that for Club 55 and additional rec space, and it keeps a potential collaboration among the 3 parties continues to come up. And so I just thought, well, let's just see what that means. The walkthrough and the deferred maintenance walkthrough was very quick. It was probably 10, 15 minutes that EUA, was spent out there. So a very high level overview versus they will be going more in depth in the other 3 buildings this Friday.
Thank you.
Okay, can I have a motion?
I'll move the board approve the contract extension for Epstein Human Architects as presented.
Second?
Okay, is there any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Ken Imers,
Aye.
Andrea Graham,
Aye.
Kirk Lund,
Aye.
Brianna Beslick,
Aye.
Amy Litcher.
Aye. Now, the fun part, we get to approve the gifts, and this is a long list, and it's so wonderful. So I ask a motion to approve all the gifts.
You've been practicing, Brianna?
I was going to say, sure, I will move to approve them all, and I will start up front that I apologize if I do not say anyone's name correctly, because we definitely appreciate all of the giving and it's your support within the district. So we have a donation of 1,600 water bottles from Trek, a donation of cookies and apples for staff from the Citizen Advocates for Public Education for Public Schools Week, a $100 anonymous donation to the Lake Mills High School Drama Club in memory of Jeff Howells, a $500 donation to the Mill from the United Methodist Church Mission Team, a $1,000 donation to the Mill in memory of Mrs. Pearl Shanky from her children and family, a $1,875 donation to the Mill in memory of Miss Pearl Shanky, and the following donations to, second one, I didn't reread that one. And then also the Rec Department Club 55, we have a $100 donation from Kathleen O'Hearn, Wendy Steve, Carol Eck, Ellen Mitchell, and Jane Radel. $120 donations from Boyd Forrest, Sally Cresson, Ken Imers, and Rick and Mary Lou Santovac. $150 donation from Gwendolyn Hansen. $160 donation from Jim Alexander. $165 donation from Peggy Zablocki, Chris Model, and John Sanft. A $250 donation from Vicki Wycliffe, a $500 donation from Bodino Fredel, a $1,000 anonymous donation, and a $1,000 donation from Mary Ann Swaska. So again, you can see the list is long, and thank you so much.
Do I have a second?
A second? I'll
Yeah.
second the motion.
All right. It's been moved and seconded, and I'm going to expect no questions. Hearing none, I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Andrea Graham.
Aye.
Kirk Lund.
Aye.
Brianna Beslick.
Aye.
Ken Imers.
Aye.
Amy Litcher.
Aye. All right, moving forward to the future agenda items.
Yeah, the National Honor Society is going to be with us at the next meeting. They're going to share some information and the work that they're doing. Our newly inducted members will be with us. And then we'll be asking the board to vote on the insurance renewal plan at that meeting. And then we also have a new request for another out-of-the-country field trip to Belize and Guatemala that we'll be bringing forward. Our Spanish teachers proposing a trip for our students. So, and then we're getting close to the April election, and then at the end of April, we'll be having the board reorganization meeting at the end of the month. So it'll be a busy month.
Are there any other added things that board members would like on either April's agendas or future items added?
I was thinking maybe just a brief update on the safety. I know you were doing work with the safety plan, and
Okay.
just brief. It doesn't have to be.
Will we be discussing staff raises at the next personnel committee meeting? Is that on that docket? Okay.
We need to, yeah, we were trying to get through some of the insurance renewal first so that we knew if there's going to be added cost to staff or not. So once that is done, then I think we'll start talking about raises as well, so.
All right. Then I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll move we adjourn.
I'll second them.
All approved, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, we are adjourned.